Hi, this is how to reupholster or at least recover a chair. You can take an old chair like this one, that's the original fabric, and very quickly transform it into that chair. So what you'll need is your fabric of choice. And the fabric was really expensive, so at IKEA I found this 57 by 94 inch tablecloth, and it had a really nice pattern, and I decided to use that. You'll also need a staple gun. See, this one's a little beat up. You want to use, make sure you have plenty of staples. These are the T50 that go with this. Heavy duty, you could not use a household stapler, you must use a heavy duty one. And you'll also need a screwdriver. This one's a Phillips head. And this one also is a Phillips head. And for the way this chair is, I needed a long base to reach the screws. And then you'll need a pair of scissors to cut your fabric. Okay, this is the underside of the chair. And you can see it has a screw there, over there. These on the sides, you don't need to worry about those. Here, and one more right here. And those simply hold the bottom or the seat on the chair. This seat has a little lip that comes over the bottom of the chair. So there's my chair again. There's the side. Speaking of the side, you can see how right here there's going to be a little fold where you crease the fabric, and it's really not a big deal if you have a large crease. Alright, now we'll take out the screws. Now someone who's really handy with tools will scoff at my dollar store screwdriver, and they'll get a drill and drill those out in like 2 seconds, but that's okay. I just use the screwdriver and pull those out, place them down here. Now, big thing is you don't want to just leave them here like that. You could lose them. I recommend just take them and put them right in your pocket. And this one should let me lift up to remove the bottom, and then the screw is right inside, right like that. A little hard to get with one hand, so I'll grab those. And after you get those last screws out, you can just lift up and the bottom comes right away. And there's the bottom of the seat pad. And your chair, if you have a nice real wooden one, you can just put it like this. And you can see how it's maybe glued together right there. You could use this time to put more glue there if you wanted to. Definitely a good time to clean it up, as well with some Murphy's oil soap or some such wood cleaner. Okay. So here is the pad of the chair. It has that lip on it, like I said, which is down there. And you can see just what the previous upholsterer did. Just use their staple gun and staple it along the bottom. And there's little pieces of the fabric where the strings are unraveling slightly. Here's how they did their corner, kind of like wrapping a present. Although they didn't really take that much care with it. You can see it's just kind of bulky right there. And one thing that if you're using a pattern like this with lines on it, you want to make sure that your lines are going to be straight on your chair pad, because it does look a little ugly if or unprofessional if the lines are wavy when they're not supposed to be. If you have a flowered print, you don't have to worry about that as much. Okay, so just a minute. The next step is to grab your fabric. Again, I'm using a tablecloth from IKEA for my fabric, but you can use pretty much any fabric you want. This is a little more durable, is almost heavy, like almost a denim type material. And this previous fabric, which has started to dry rot a little bit, it was a thicker fabric too, not like a blouse, but more like something, I would say like on a couch. Oh, and if you look at this corner here, they've just cut it and they put 3 staples in, so it's by no means anything like extremely technical where you have to measure every single cut. I'm sure there's people out there that like to measure everything, but I'm not one of them. I like to do it quick and easy. One more thing is when you're using your fabric, one of the sides will have a better shade of the color. So here's the top, that would be the top part of the tablecloth, and then underneath, that color is not as rich in my opinion, but it could just be me. But I am definitely making sure I'm using the top part for the chair. Now you'll want to put the bottom of your chair, this is the bottom, it'll be face up, so then when you cover it with your fabric, you can staple right onto here, the base. Now this, I'll need to bring it back a little bit more. And then when I flip it over, I'll be able to staple right there on the edge. If I can get my assistant, please, to hold this fabric right here. Thank you, assistant. And so that's actually pretty good. And it can be stapled right against the bottom. And as you go, just try to pull it straight so your line won't be crooked. Because if your line, you know, gets crooked, it's really no big deal. It's up to you. But if you're somebody that's a perfectionist, that'd be the person that probably uses the drill to get the screws out of the chair. They are going to measure everything and make sure those lines will get out the level and everything. And you will not see me doing that, but you'll still get a great end result. Okay, so we'll start stapling. Now, a previous chair I covered did not have a lip on it, so this was not a problem, and it's not a problem this time either. You just make an allowance for it. So you butt the cloth up to the bottom and go ahead and put a staple in. If you're not very strong on upper body strength, get somebody like your strapping 16, almost 17-year-old son to do it, like I've got my son to help. Okay. Now, sometimes your staples may not go all the way in. Focus, please. As in the case right there. So we put another one in. Show where that other one is, please. Right there. And if they're not down far enough, you can go ahead and hammer them in a little bit. Go ahead and hammer in, please. That's just fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. It'll hold it, and that's all you basically need it to do. Okay, and now we'll work on the side. Someone else that is definitely a perfectionist would have ironed this first, but I figure I'm not worried about these wrinkles because as it is used as a chair, people will sit on it and the wrinkles will disappear. And right here, again, we're using the bottom of the tablecloth. And I'm going to make sure that when I bring my cloth up, I want it to cover up this edge. Not really for any real purpose because this was visible under the chair previously, but just because I don't want to see it. So since that's like way too much fabric right there, so I basically only need enough to, right there I can feel it. So if I just go, let me pull it up, pull that up. So right there would cover it, but I'm gonna go about this far. So that means I can just cut along that light blue line to the edge. Okay, so we'll cut that.
He's gonna get in the shot.
Okay, so now I just want to make sure that I cut along this line here, straight over. It's a little tricky to do with one hand, but let's see if we can get it anyway.
Try it.
Yeah, we'll just show you in a minute. Okay, so I've cut across the edge, and I didn't make it all the way to the end because I just need to figure out where, because of my tablecloth, am I going to go. See, again, those people that like to measure and everything, they don't have to deal with this problem, but that's okay. I want to make sure that when I pull the side up, it's going to cover that little piece of material. And so just eyeballing it, I'm going to come up and cut along this line here. Okay, just a minute. So I have my piece of fabric, and this would be rather overkill to use this whole big swatch. Kind of gives it that Christmas present look, or present where you just wrap a present. But again, I want to keep my line straight as possible. Here is where that other piece of fabric is underneath. So I will cut along this line because I want to fold it under a little bit. So I'll be cutting up to there. Up to right there. Okay. So if you remember the previous person that covered it, they just put their staples along, and they were doing it in some factory, I'm sure, and they had to do it a quick production line. So they didn't take too much care with, you know, their edges and the end right here. You can see how they have it just a little bunchy, and they just cut away the pieces that they don't want. So we'll cover our end. Okay, so over here on this edge, just like you would kind of do a present maybe, and you just fool with it a little bit till you get the way that you think it'll look nice. I like how that looks over on the edge there. And if I do that and pull, it'll be a little bulky, so I can see if I can minimize that bulkiness. But if you look at this previous person, they have that bulkiness too, so since I don't need that material, I can cut that off. If I can find my scissors, here they are. Now sometimes there's like a padding underneath, and there is a padding underneath this one. So I'm not really able to get it that close. You saw that little whiff, sawdust or whatever is under there. Again, you just play with it a little bit. I seem to think that that's pretty good right there. It's not too puffy. Okay, make sure they can see. So all I did was just take it, fold it, pull that a little bit. I want to pull it as tight as I can, pretty much. It's not really a fine art, honestly.
Remember, this is the quick way.
Okay, so basically just held it in place. Now one thing I do want to do is try to get that little wrinkle out, and I did that just by pulling straight on my fabric. And I'm going to go across the edge. Now I didn't cut enough to cover this side here, but I can pull it some. But I want to make it as straight as possible. So I'm going to come up here. And I'll get over here. Now that didn't go quite all the way down, so I'll probably get the hammer in a minute. Now the other one we did, it seemed like the staples went down just fine. But again, I don't think it's a problem. We'll just hammer them down. You can see my line down here is still looking pretty straight. So at least it won't be like an eyesore. I'm kind of surprised those aren't going all the way down. Okay, since they didn't go all the way down, I'm just going to tap them in the rest of the way. one bent, no big deal. A little bit of a wrinkle, but it'll probably work its way out. Now right here in this corner, I'm not real happy with the way that's flipped up, just because that's me. The other one was about that way too. Just tack it down a little bit more. That looks pretty good. So what your front side looks like right now, there's those wrinkles that you'll sit on and press out. And even when we pull it though, they'll come out too. And since we haven't done this bottom part yet, everything's looking pretty straight so far. Okay. Here's the side that we just did. It's looking really good. Okay, so the next part I'll do is this next side. And it has a little bit more fabric. I wanted to cover as much of this as possible, just because I didn't like it. So again, I'm going to fold it kind of like a present. Though I wouldn't say that's really how I do a present that way. There, that seems pretty good. Getting that little bit of bulk right there. But okay, let's just fold it. And let them see from the side. My dog doesn't like the sound of the staple gun. It's okay. Shh. Okay. We'll go let him out in just a second. All right, we'll put a pause and let him. Okay, so it is a little bulky, but I think it looks fine. I do notice I have a bit of a crease right here, but again, it's just fine. Oh, and if you wanted to, you can fold the edge down, and that looks kind of pretty. But then again, you know, it's just one side. If you wanted to do all the sides that way, you could, and the edge looks more finished. And I'm pulling it down as I go to try to keep it again as straight with the lines. And even if they're not perfect, it'll still look good. Okay, and I'm gonna tap those in since they didn't go all the way down. And that annoys me, but that'll be covered up by the bottom piece of wood on the chair. Okay, one more. Okay, now since I have this wrinkle here, I can just pull it. Fold over. Oh yeah, these are the little, this again is different from the other chair that I've done. It has a kind of a lip on it where it fits into the base. So it's not going to be beautiful, it'll be a little wrinkly, but it'll be perfect. Okay, so again, just fabric over. And I'm going to pull that just up. Kind of have your little Christmas present edge. Back to this side. And I've got this little edge. So I'm just going to pull it. Tack down. And yeah, I could put one right there. or didn't get the wood. So obviously just pull it out. Now you can't reuse those staples, and make sure that you put them in the trash. You do not want to step on one of those. You might need to get your tetanus shot again if you haven't had one in a while. Okay, so I'm fooling around with this one a little bit. Let me just pull that. And the other one, they just cut it to go around it. So I could try that. Don't go down too far, you'll mess up your fabric. Okay. Okay, so is that any real big deal? No. I'll tap those down again. Okay. And the last part, since I have this really big hunk, I'll just cut it off. Just adds bulk. Pull it. Again, I'll tap that down. Here. I'm trying to make sure along the front that I just kind of pull it taut. I'll just put a little crease, a little fold. One more. And tap them down. Okay, the little pieces that are up like that, it really is no big deal at all. Just ignore it. This is not going to make any difference on your chair. Now we're ready to attach the bottom to the chair. So here's my bottom. Oh, and here's how it looks. A little dust on it. And there's the little wrinkle in there. It will disappear by the time you sit in it a few times. Okay, this is the front of my chair, right through here. Now if you chose to get the Murphy's oil soap, your chair might be a little greasy or oily, so you need to be careful because you don't want to get your fabric stained. Okay. Now remember, do you remember where you put your screws at? You put them in your pocket like I suggested. You'll know right where they are. And here are mine. Okay. You can go ahead and push pause. All right, now, so you're going to just go ahead and press and screw that in. Sometimes you'll need to hold it a little bit. And I like to make it tight, but obviously, you know, it doesn't have to be. It just needs to be tight enough to hold the bottom on. Okay. Here's the other one, and you can see the line. It's maybe a little smaller down here, but I think it's just fine. Okay, 2 more screws. Whoops, there went one of them. Okay, go ahead and get that one. Now simply take your chair and turn it right side up. And there you go. You can see, please get up. You can see the patterns are not identical because you have this a little further to the left, and a little further to the right, but I think it looks pretty good. And then a little Murphy's oil soap on the wood will shine that up for you. And now you can see again what the chairs look like before they're recovered and after. And something you won't mind having your guests sit on or your family sit on, and you don't have to worry about a light colored material like this one getting dirty and stained. You can also spray that with some Scotch Guard so that it'll be easy to clean. All right, thanks for watching, and hope you find a project for yourself to do.